Hey everybody, how you doing? We're going to look at the 2024 Vaquero from Kawasaki and the 2024 Road Glide from Harley Davidson. And we're going to do we're just going to have fun tonight. We're going to compare them. We're going to see which one is really the better value. Which one is going to get you the most bang for your buck, so to speak. And I think it might surprise you what I come up with. And we'll go into it. We're not going to do an exhaustive point by point breakdown of each motorcycle. I kind of did that last time with the CVO Dirt Glide, the Pan America. And my point to that was just basically to say there really wasn't a need for a CVO Pan America because the CVO model wasn't anything special. It didn't bring anything new to the table for next year's Pan America buyers to look forward to in the trickle down that normally happens with CVOs. And I was kind of disappointed in that, but it's not my bike. I don't have to buy it. It was just an observation that I had. This is different though. But there's so much going on. I don't want to bog down the video like I did last time with a point by point checklist. But there are differences that are important to look at. So with that, let's get into it. The Vaquero was introduced way back in, I've got notes here, so if I look down, that's why. Introduced way back in 2011. A year prior, according to motorcycle.com, most of these stats are going to come from motorcycle.com. The Road Glide was introduced in 2010. And since then, both bikes have been kind of moving side by side with each other. Harley, of course, has always gotten the lion's share of the market, but they work really hard at advertising and things like that, whereas Kawasaki, not so much. They don't really advertise the way I personally think they ought to, because they're a good bike. They really are. But with that, I went back 5 years to 2019 and kind of worked my way forward to look at the pricing, look at stats, look at what's changed, what things have happened, right? And interesting, let's look at I'm going to show you the price. I'm not going to show you the pricing. I'm going to tell you the pricing kind of in brief. In 2019, the MSRP for the Vaquero was $16,799. The Road Glide base, no specials, no nothing. We're just talking base Road Glides this entire time, was $21,589. So you got basically a $5,000 difference, maybe not quite $4,800 difference. That's not terrible, really. But the thing is, the Road Glides back then weren't really anything special. There wasn't, in my mind, enough there to justify the difference in cost, other than what typically people think about why Harleys are more expensive is because you're paying for the badge and the shield. You got what they call the badge and shield tax. And then, the bike was a little bit better, but I don't think it was $4,000 better, at least not then. But Harley has been slowly and steadily moving away from the market of the common man to being a strictly premium brand, whereas Kawasaki is not making any movement at all towards being premium. They're a budget bike. Their fit and finish isn't as tight as Harley, and they're fine with that. So, that's 2019, 16.7 versus 21.5, and really nothing changed for the next 3 years. 2020, 16.7, 21.6. Harley went up like $100. And then 2021, Kawasaki went up $200, 16.9. And Harley, according to motorcycle.com, didn't change at all. It stayed at 21.6. 2022, Harley went up, Kawasaki went up $600 to $17,599, and Harley went up a few $100, $22,249. Last year, the Vaquero was 18.5, so Kawasaki jumped a full thousand that year. And Harley actually went down. It didn't go down much, but it did go down, which is unexpected. It went from 22,249, the Road Glide in 2022, to 2023 went to 21,999. But this is the year that something changed, something happened. This year's the 2024 Vaquero, and I'm going to put it up on screen. There it is on screen. I'm going to put it up there. It's 19,999. The Harley went up $4,000. So the 2024 Vaquero from last year went up about $500. The Harley went up $4,000. The base price of the new Harley Road Glide is $25,999. So I'm looking at, this is part of the advertising that I'm talking to you about, that I wish Kawasaki did a better job. This is all you get. You get the picture of this man, this professional rider, I assume, model, riding a motorcycle, and that's all you get. You get a few basic inputs for what it is, but then you just get all these stills, right? That anybody could give you. And this is they don't have much in the way of accessories, right? But that's Kawasaki. They hate their customers. They don't give them much to choose from. They say, here's your bike. There it is. If you want it, great. If you don't, that's fine too. We're not going to give you a lot. But because of that, that's why they don't change in prices. I mean, if you sit there and look at this, in 5 years, they've only raised their price for their bike $3,000, not even $3,000. So, but as much as I'd love to talk about the Vaquero, I can't say a whole lot because it hasn't changed. It never changes. The forks are the same. The brakes are the same. The engine is the same. The fairing is the same. The bags are the same. The infotainment center, which isn't an infotainment center, it's a radio with a hidden pigtail in the left cubby of the fairing for like a, I don't know, I think it's a Bluetooth adapter so that you can do that. As far as I know, the speakers have never changed. Nothing changes. But from Kawasaki's point of view, why should it change? It works. It's, the kind of, the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think that's where Kawasaki is sitting. They've not changed anything because their bikes don't break and they just work. You go through Cycle Trader and you see plenty of 50,000 plus miles on the Vaqueros. They're constantly known as being a 100,000 mile engine. But to be fair, like most any engine can be a 100,000 mile engine if you just take care of it. But that being said, Kawasaki has a great reputation for being user-friendly, maintenance-free kind of motorcycles. Nothing catastrophic really happens to them in general. I'm sure there's exceptions somewhere, but in general, they're a good, solid bike, a safe brand to buy. But just know you're not getting anything flashy. You're getting pretty much what you need and nothing more. And because nothing on the bike changes, if you don't like this year's color, which is metallic matte twilight blue, search through the years and find you a color you do like, because you're getting the exact same bike as you would be getting if you bought one new. That's the truth. So, since there's really nothing more to say about the Vaquero other than it's steadfast, it's reliable, it's stable, and if you don't know what I feel about the Vaquero, really, go back and find my Kawasaki demo days, the Vaquero ride, and you'll see just a giddy boy on a new toy. I love it. It felt so good. It felt so stable. I'd never been on a bike that heavy before, and it was so easy to ride. So well balanced. I never felt out of place or out of sorts on it at all. Beautiful bike. Now, let's go where the money is. Let's look at Harley Davidson. Come on, baby. Now, forgive this. This is not what the Harley Davidson is going to look like. But I want you to see something. Look how Harley advertises. I mean, this is beautiful. This is cool. Look at that. You get the lighting effect. They tease you with the badge. And then I'm going to go back here just a little bit if I can. Look at that TFT display. We're going to talk about that just a little bit. Like I said, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, but this is what we're talking about. So why did Harley jump their pricing $4,000 this year? Well, I took a few notes. and this bike here is not what you get for the $25.99. This is what you get for $25,999. Chromed out and gray. I don't know about you, but that's awful looking. That is awful looking. I absolutely detest everything about that. If I were to spend money, I would spend $850 for this beautiful, beautiful red. What is that called? Whiskey Fire. And then I'd spend another $1,300 to black it out. If I were to pay money, that's what I would get, is this bike right here. This red and black combination is fire, baby. But I don't pay $25.99, $9.99 MSRP. Add another almost $900, $2,100 onto that. So, we're looking at $28,000 at this point. But you know what? That's a good looking bike. So, look at this. So here's what we're talking about. This is why Harley is going to charge more, because this year they took a lot of last year's CVO parts and dropped them down into their main bike line. Again, this is why I don't like the CVO Pan America. They did nothing new. Everything on the basic bike is on the CVO, vice versa. You could make your own CVO. You couldn't do that with this, because on to this year's CVO, the 2024, there's still things on that bike that didn't make it to this year's main lineup. But some of the eye catchers that did make it, this new LED lighting, this new fairing with this new windshield design. They filled in the empty spaces that are normally empty on these bikes with fresh lighting, sleek, beautiful looking. The braking, these are Harley branded Brembo brakes, which they've always had. At least the last 5 years when I looked at the stats between the two bikes, Brembo has always been a part of this. I forgot to check if they changed the rotor size, but I do know that's a 320 millimeter rotor up front. And then, of course, yeah, like I said, the whole design of the fairing is different and new and changed. So there's a good look at that TFT display. They got rid of all their analogs, and now it's complete TFT display, and it looks sharp. It looks really sharp. They really did a good job with this. That's a 12.3 inch screen, which is like 3 times bigger than what it originally was, because they had the TFT shared with analogs. Since they got rid of all the analogs, they kind of took a cue from BMW's bagger, and they went with this monster size screen that has everything in it. Let me just run while we're looking. Well, I'll let that play, but let me do something here and just show you very quickly what I'm talking about. Again, if I'm looking down, I'm sorry. I got notes here that I just chicken scribbled real quick, I don't take any time to memorize everything. You're catching things as I'm thinking about them on the fly. This is what real conversations look like. This is what it is. If you like it, hit like, subscribe, and let's move on. So, in 2024, you pay an extra $4,000 for the Harley-Davidson Road Glide. What are you paying for? You're paying for a new fairing. You're paying for a new engine, which I didn't even cover. They've got their new, I want to say, is it the 117 Milwaukee 8 in it this year? Yes, the 117. The CVO is rocking a 121 right now. We'll probably see that next year in these lineups or 2 years down the road. So new fairing, new engine, better lighting for the, Harley is finally getting on board the LED train. So it's wrapped completely in LED lighting. Big thumbs up. I like it. This year, the RDRS, Rider Defense Rider System, is standard. It's not an option. It's standard. It was like either a 1350 or an 1850 option on when it was just kind of offered out there. But now it's standard, and I am here for it. For a bike this size and for the general, how do I want to put this, untrained population to deal with a bike of this size and nature. In other words, people generally don't take advanced classes. They go from a small bike and then they get a big bagger, and whatever bad habits they learned on the small bike they bring to the big bike. That's generally, again, there's always exceptions. I'm just talking in general. RDRS is ABS, traction, cornering ABS, rider modes, cornering traction control, linked brakes, like every safety nanny control you can think of to keep you safe in all kinds of conditions is on this bike, and it's standard. Again, 2 thumbs up. I'm here for it. It's got, I already said, it's got Harley branded Brembo brakes. Inside that navigation system, it's got, or inside that TFT display, they've added GPS and a better navigation system. The saddlebags, I don't know if you saw or were paying attention to it. Let me scroll back up to a different image. Right there, the saddlebags have been redesigned. They clipped the back end so they're not stretched out over the pipe. They're tucked back in. That's a design thing. You like it, you like it. You don't, you don't. From what I understand, it doesn't really compromise the size of the bag as far as its utilized storage space. But it's a design change. They've done something to do something different on the whole bike. I mean, the way these lines move, the way they flow into each other, this bike is beautiful. I like the engine guards. They're not the really big square kind. They're more sleek and tucked in, but they're enough to do the job. What else? It's just a beautiful bike. I love it. I do love this bike. Now, looking at I want to compare a couple of the differences real quick between these two bikes that stand out to me. And that is coming to the front forks on the Kawasaki. We're looking at 45 millimeter forks. On the Harley, we're looking at 49 millimeter front forks. So a bit beefier on the front suspension. On the brakes, both bikes have dual piston 300 millimeter discs on the back. Dual piston caliper, 300 millimeter discs. Okay. On the front, the Kawasaki is running a 300 millimeter disc. The Harley is running a 320 millimeter disc. So again, stronger front end, a better suspension, and better braking on the front end. The brake brand, like I said, is Brembo on Harley, and on Kawasaki, they're called Tokiko. And I had to actually look that up to see if Tokiko was an off-brand. I was hoping to see Brembo, but that's not the case. They're off-brand. They're a brand that another Japanese company, Hitachi, had absorbed, and they're an automotive brand. And the other big difference between Harley and Kawasaki, of course, Harley gives you a whole range of colors that you can choose from. Kawasaki gives you one color. That's all you get for that model year. So I'm going to wrap this up real quick. Kawasaki, you have the same bike that you've always had, period. And this year's no exception. Harley, you get a whole load of upgrades that directly trickled down from the previous year's CVO line. So, Kawasaki, 19,099 this year, no changes. Therefore, their price barely budged and reflects the fact that there's no changes. Harley does a whole rework of their Road Glide, and they only charged $4,000 more. So, which is the better bargain? Harley. I am going to say Harley Davidson between these two bikes is the better deal because they went the extra mile. They did so much more to do something different with their bike. And they still kept it within $6,000 of their budget-friendly competition. That's impressive to me. I know these came out with problems. I know there's a giant recall. I know there's some plastic part in there that people aren't really a fan of, and I think that's why the recall happened. Like there was something that they did rush. I'm not saying it's a perfect bike, and I'm not saying I would buy one today because while we're talking MSRP, the evil thing about Harley and their dealerships is that there's a lot of upcharges. Although I think it was a Matt Laidlaw video I was watching, and he said that a couple of those big upcharges were canceled out for this year. But still, you're probably, while this is an MSRP, you're probably not going to see it out the door until you hit the 28 to maybe even, depending on what dealer you go to, even $30,000 mark, depending on what paint you get, finish, stuff like that, right? Nothing without anything really super extravagant happening. You're probably going to see this for about 28 to 30,000 out the door. Whereas with the Kawasaki, you're really not going to get much of a surprise. I know there's a $475 destination fee on it, but after that, I don't think Kawasaki has the habit of, or the reputation of upcharging their bikes like Harley does. So, just saying, you're going to be closer to MSRP with the Kawasaki than you probably will be with the Harley. But again, is it worth it? It would be worth it for me to pay extra for the paint and the finish. It absolutely would. And the rest of the bike I'd just leave alone because what more do you really need to do to it? Yeah, you're probably going to change the pipes, and you might change the bars, and you might change the seat. That's all pretty standard fare. So yeah, you're definitely going to be looking closer to 30 at that point. But the same things happen with the Kawasaki, and it's still going to be cheaper no matter what. So while I can sit here and honestly say I think for the money, Harley is probably the better deal because of how much more you actually do get, I will say it's not for everybody. It's not for me. As much as I dig what Harley has done, a lot of that stuff doesn't apply to me. A lot of that stuff I actually don't need for my style of riding. That's not to say it's bad. It's just saying it's my choice, my personal preference. I still will favor the Vaquero. I'm a simple guy. I don't need a whole lot of stuff. I don't need a whole lot of stuff that's going to cause me to not look at the road, that's for sure. And, those of you who have had baggers who are touring aficionados, and you're used to having all that stuff in front of you on your motorcycle and you know how to navigate that and work around it, then I would really encourage you to look at this bike. The only thing that might be kind of weird is I do know they reworked all the buttons on the handles and kind of changed things around and made it, because you do have so much more you're dealing with, you have more things to do with your thumbs. But I'm sure that's a learning curve that's easily overtaken. I think all in all, Harley has a really good quality bike. They did all the right things to it. And I think for a measly $4,000, $5,000 in MSRP, that is, over their budget bike, I think you get a lot for your money. But there's a market for both, right? There's a market for both. There's a market for the guy that wants the best of everything he can get, which, is going to vary by the consumer from CVO down to the basic. And then there's the guy that's me, that's like, you know what? I just need to get on it and ride, and it needs to work. And also, this might be a better bike for someone who's just getting into the bagger world, who doesn't want to spend a premium price on something for them to get their feet wet into, but will still do technically everything that the Harley will do. It'll munch down massive amounts of miles. You'll feel comfortable doing it. It's got good storage. You can do everything on this Kawasaki that you can do the Harley. It just won't be as elegant. It won't be as pretty. It won't be as loud, shall we say. Not just now I follow another YouTuber called TD205. His Kawasaki Vaquero is one of the best I've ever heard. It just sounds so good. So these can be made to sound good. They don't have to sound anything other than great. But just know it is a budget bike. And I will tell you in closing, coming over to yet another screen, if I were to get one for myself, let me drag this over so you all can see it. I would be very tempted to buy something like this one. For $10,000 and only 17,000 miles, this Vaquero is one of my favorite. It's the 2014 Special Edition Vaquero. They don't do special editions anymore. They don't do these radical paint jobs anymore. But this, to me, fits the hot rod motif that the Vaquero just screams at me. When you look at the Vaquero dash, and again, if you watch my video, you'll see what I'm talking about, my Vaquero video. It's all analog, and it's this old school hot rod, numbering, gauging setup. And this paint scheme, this candy burnt orange with these flames, that's all hot rod, baby. That is all hot rod. And so I would actually be looking for this bike, this Vaquero, because you know what? While this is a 2014 Vaquero, it's exactly the same bike as the 2024. And $10,000, baby. How can you go wrong? How can you go wrong? So that concludes, that's the end of my video. I hope I didn't drag this out too long. I actually wasn't timing myself, but I just wanted to say the Vaquero is a good option, but the Harley has actually got a very solid value, very solid bang for your buck for all the work and all the changes and all the stuff that's standard now, like LED lighting and RDRS. Oh my gosh. Yes. So pick your poison. I think this new Road Glide, the new direction they're taking this Road Glide, is going to be a good seller. I think it's, once they get the wrinkles out of it, I think it's going to be great. The Vaquero has always been a good value. It's always been rock steady. They're probably not going to change it anytime soon. If they do, it won't be anything massive, because they just have a winning combination of parts that work, and the people that ride them, you know what? They love them. They do love them. And if you look on different Facebook groups, they have modded the snot out of some of these Vaqueros, and they look hot. So with that, I hope you all have a good evening. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope maybe you learned something. And don't forget to leave a comment below. And we'll see you on the next one.